Tonight, voters in Canada's most populous province hand the Progressive Conservatives a decisive victory.
Tonight belongs to you.
A third consecutive majority for Ontario's Doug Ford. How he beat his rivals and who will form the opposition. A last-minute Canadian pitch in Washington before tariffs are set to kick in. And what led to this moment in the U.S. Capitol?
We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
Thank you.
Grieving relatives react to the possible discovery of human remains at a Manitoba landfill.
All I could think about was I want my mom.
What police are saying about the shocking death of screen icon Gene Hackman, his wife and their dog, and who found them dead.
Are they breathing?
I have no idea.
Plus, why Americans in Canada are severing their ties with the Stars and Stripes.
I am just so embarrassed, I think, really, by what my country has become.
The surge in those renouncing U.S. citizenship and the massive hurdles.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. Ontario's Progressive Conservatives have pulled off a rare political feat as we come on the air tonight. 3 back-to-back majorities. That's the first time that's happened in the province since 1959. Let's get to CTV's John Venevelli-Rao, who is standing by live at PC headquarters in Toronto. And John, the gamble of a snap election paying off for Doug Ford tonight. He pitched himself throughout this campaign as the man to take on Donald Trump and his tariffs, and he brought that up again, the U.S. president, in his victory speech tonight. What did he say?
Well, he said he can't pit us against each other as Canadians, that Canada will not be the 51st state, and that Canada is not for sale. Messages we've heard him say throughout this campaign. And boy, right after 9 o'clock when the polls closed here, it just took a couple of minutes before the announcement was made that the PCs would get a majority, a third straight majority here. There was a huge cheer here. And while it is a big win for Doug Ford, it is notable that his party hasn't exactly gained any seats in the legislature. And the composition of the legislature looks an awfully lot like it did heading into this campaign. So for critics who said that the snap election was unnecessary, a waste of taxpayers' money, they may be feeling slightly vindicated by these results tonight. But no question, a third straight majority win is a huge victory for the Progressive Conservatives. And Doug Ford, who said he wanted a strong mandate to take on Donald Trump and to spend big to counterattack tariff, the fallout from tariffs. Here's a little bit more of what Doug Ford had to say tonight.
What a night and what a result. Thank you so much. Together we have made history. Together we have secured a strong, historic third majority mandate.
Now, the NDP, they hung on to their official opposition status. The Liberals in Ontario did make some gains in that they have enough seats now to regain official party status, something they haven't had in 7 years, though notably, Liberal Party leader Bonnie Crombie failed to win her seat tonight. Omar.
All right, John Venevelli-Rao at PC headquarters in Toronto tonight. John, thank you for this. Now, as we mentioned, Ontario's election campaign was dominated in large part by the threat of U.S. tariffs. Today, the U.S. president said those tariffs will take effect on Tuesday, as Canada again made a push in Washington, urging Trump not to follow through. CTV's Judy Trin explains.
A full court press from Canada's top officials responsible for border security and drug enforcement, armed with a message for the American border czar, Tom Homan, that Canada is stopping fentanyl from being smuggled into the U.S.
The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made. In my view, any test that was put on this country, on Canada, in terms of showing progress and meeting standards for the border, I believe those have been met.
In a span of 40 days, the RCMP went on a crackdown, making 524 arrests and seizures across Canada, including more than 46 kilograms of fentanyl and more than 15,700 pills.
Over 15,000 pills, not strictly fentanyl, but other pills as well. 122 firearms and multiple arrests, over 524 arrests. So that's a success.
American data shows that last year, 19.5 kilograms of fentanyl was seized at the border. That equals 0.2% of the total. But that's not good enough for the president.
The country should not be allowing those drugs to come into the United States of America, and we're not going to allow it to happen. So that goes on the 4th of March.
From Blackhawks to drug detection dogs, Canada is spending $1.3 billion to fight the problem of fentanyl and illegal migration. If Donald Trump is unconvinced by the evidence, the Prime Minister says Canada will hit back.
If on Tuesday there are unjustified tariffs brought in on Canada, we will have an immediate and extremely strong response, as Canadians expect.
The federal government has a plan to retaliate with tariffs on $155 billion worth of American goods. It's a move that polls show 70% of Canadians support. Omar.
All right, Judy Trin in Ottawa tonight. While hosting the British Prime Minister today, Trump was pressed about his past comments on a leader he will be meeting in Washington tomorrow.
Still think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
The U.S. president seemed to deny calling Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator just days ago. And later, at that joint press conference with Keir Starmer, Trump shut down a question about his annexation threats against Canada.
We had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
Thank you.
And Wayne Gretzky's wife is speaking out about the backlash the hockey legend is facing from Canadians over his support of Trump. On Instagram today, Janet Gretzky posted that the mean comments have, quote, broken his heart. Last night, Donald Trump defended his friend, calling him the greatest Canadian, and that he doesn't want anyone in Canada to say anything bad about him. Gretzky, so far, has remained silent. There is shock and mystery tonight surrounding the death of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa. The bodies of the couple, along with their dog, were found by a caretaker who frantically called 911.
Are they breathing?
I have no idea. I'm not inside the house. It's closed. It's locked. I can't go in. But I see them. She's laying down on the floor from the window.
Okay. Are they moving at all?
No, dude, they're not moving. Just send somebody out here really quick.
Hackman, who is 95 years old, and his 65-year-old wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found Wednesday inside their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. Police say they were likely dead for some time. A warrant reveals Arakawa's body was found in a bathroom near the front door, which was open. An orange bottle of prescription pills scattered on the countertop, and a space heater near her head, which detectives say could indicate she fell abruptly to the ground. Hackman was found in a mudroom near the kitchen, his cane next to him, according to the warrant, and signs he too may have fallen. Police say the deaths are suspicious, but they are ruling out a carbon monoxide leak or foul play.
There was no indication of a struggle. There was no indication of anything that was missing from the home or disturbed.
The sudden deaths leaving fans shaken, reflecting on the life and legacy of an entertainment legend. Here's CTV's Scott Lightfoot.
I expect and demand your very best.
For more than 5 decades, he was a star of the screen, but Gene Hackman started his life as a child of divorce who lied about his age to join the Marines and then worked a number of different jobs just to pay for auditions.
Every day was like a new challenge. It was going out and trying to get that job and doing those auditions, and I loved it.
The aspiring actor joined the Pasadena Playhouse, where he met another young hopeful named Dustin Hoffman. The two were voted least likely to succeed.
We're going to have ourselves a time, boy!
But it didn't take long for success to come. His first of 5 Oscar nominations garnered for his role in Bonnie and Clyde.
I don't buy that, Irv. The stuff is in that car.
1971's The French Connection would get him his first Oscar win.
The prestige involved with an Oscar means that you have been in a couple of films that have made some money and that they can take a chance on you.
On Independence Day.
And Hackman kept capitalizing on the chances he was given, winning an Oscar 21 years later for his role in Unforgiven. But Hackman says he felt the tough guy roles limited his range.
We were cast so close to type in films that you can only do so much within your own persona.
He created the film persona of an iconic nemesis to Superman.
You were great in your day, Superman.
And though a huge star, Hackman said he always liked the idea of Hollywood, but never fully embraced it.
I guess movie star is Robert Redford and Paul Newman, and kind of guys that I idolized or visualized when I was a real young guy.
In the 1980s, Hackman and his then-girlfriend, later wife, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, moved to New Mexico. He would continue his film career. In his later films, Hackman took on comedic roles.
Comedy's harder because, you know, it isn't arbitrary. If they don't laugh, it doesn't work.
And the problem is?
And in 2004, citing the stress of the craft as being a hazard to his health, Hackman retired from acting, for the most part living out the rest of his life out of the spotlight. Gene Hackman was 95. Scott Lightfoot, CTV News, Toronto.
Here at home, search teams have made a heartbreaking discovery in a Manitoba landfill, possibly human remains belonging to 2 Indigenous women. CTV's Alex Karpa on the emotional toll on their families.
All I could think about was I want my mom. No one should go through any type of heartbreak without their mom.
The families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron emotional today after the discovery of potential human remains at Manitoba's Prairie Green landfill.
That scary movie we've been living for the last couple of years has become a reality.
The search of the landfill began in December after family and Indigenous leaders pushed to search this area for the women murdered by convicted serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky.
Although it's a good thing that we found the remains, it's also very, very hard. We're going to continue fighting.
No family, no person should go through what we went through.
Skibitsky was convicted last year of 4 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison in the deaths of Myron, Harris, Rebecca Comtois, and an unidentified victim named Buffalo Woman.
Our stolen sisters deserve to be found, and they deserve to be honored, and they deserve to be laid to rest with dignity.
Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew hopes the discovery could serve as vindication for the families.
There should be a process if this is one of the loved ones of these families to provide identification, or if this is going to take us in a different direction, then we need to be open to that possibility too.
Premier Kinew said the identification process could take a couple of weeks. Activity here at the Prairie Green landfill site was paused on Wednesday following the discovery, but has since continued on Thursday. The families of Myron and Harris have asked for privacy at this time. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
And Manitoba today became the first province to join the federal pharmacare plan. But the deal comes just days before Justin Trudeau steps down, raising questions about the future of the program. Here's CTV's Rachel Aiello.
The federal provincial agreement, worth $219 million, is the first of its kind, offering Manitobans improved access to diabetes medications such as insulin, as well as oral contraceptives, IUDs, and the morning after pill. Though, because the province already offers free contraceptives, the deal will allow Manitoba to expand access to menopause medications.
We all know that when women, girls, folks have full autonomy over their own bodies and their reproductive choices, our communities thrive.
But those struggling to afford these drugs now will have to wait until June, as that's when coverage is expected to start. And it's also likely after the next federal election. With the Conservatives calling the first phase of a national public drug plan radical, the Liberals are facing pressure from the NDP to get more deals done fast.
We want to get it done as quickly as possible, not because of politics, but because people are suffering and people need help. How can we not have consensus on this?
If that doesn't happen, public health care advocates fear the entire effort is at risk of being dismantled by a future government.
Pharmacare has been hanging on by its fingernails for the last few months. We need a critical mass of provinces and territories to sign on to the agreement to really lock it down.
British Columbia has signaled its intent to sign on too, but buy-in from the other provinces and territories remains to be seen. Today, the health minister said he's having good talks across the country, but didn't say how soon other deals could be done. Omar?
All right, Rachel, thank you. And an update to a story we brought you last night. Nova Scotia's premier has now agreed to resume taking questions from the media at the legislature after saying this yesterday.
By moving the scrums, I guess, probably 60 feet from where they were to this room,
There's technology in here that will allow reporters to phone in. It's not something that is keeping most Nova Scotians awake.
The about face comes after accusations Tim Houston was curtailing press freedoms. Coming up, why Americans in Canada are saying no to the Stars and Stripes.
I am going to set fire to this thing.
The Americans renouncing their citizenship and why it may be harder than they thought.
Tomorrow on CTV National News.
Absolutely devastating, humiliating.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars lost in one fraudulent bank transaction.
Everything looked like it was on the up and up.
What you need to know about the sophisticated GIC scam.
It really hurts, and it hurts my family.
Tomorrow on CTV National News and ctvnews.ca.
Since Donald Trump began his aggressive stance against Canada, there has been a surge of Americans here talking about giving up their U.S. citizenship. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson spoke to one family ready to do just that.
I am going to set fire to this thing.
Jennifer Doxey doesn't want to be an American anymore.
I value the opportunity to live in Canada, and I am just so embarrassed, I think, really, by what my country has become.
Doxey moved to this country from the U.S. Midwest close to 2 decades ago, first to Saskatchewan, then settling on Vancouver Island. Her husband and one of her 2 daughters have dual citizenship.
We feel Canadian in every respect, but every last one of us in our family is like chained to the United States, and we don't want to be.
The tipping point? Trump, his tariff threats, and talk of annexation.
I hear Donald Trump come on television and say that he would like to make Canada the 51st state, and this just infuriated me.
But renouncing American citizenship isn't easy or cheap. The U.S. charges about $3,400 Canadian per person. The process can take months, including immigration filings, tax submissions, and an interview.
It's a major life decision, and it's not something that should be taken lightly.
Still, one immigration lawyer, an American who renounced his own citizenship in 2023, says since Trump was reelected, he's getting 50% more inquiries.
I think there's just a frustration that the country is going in this direction of animosity, and people don't recognize it from when they used to live there.
Jennifer Doxey is sure she will never live in the United States again.
I feel for the people that are left behind, that are having to watch this.
Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Still ahead. How imported tires rolling into Canada are deflating the car industry. Tires are Nova Scotia's largest export to the United States, and that's why a concern raised by the province's premier is gaining a lot of traction. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
Nova Scotia's 3 Michelin tire plants represent a key cog in the provincial economy, generating $1.3 billion in annual trade.
They're an important producer to a supply chain throughout the United States.
Premier Tim Houston says trouble is now hovering over the tire industry. He wants Canada Border Services Agency to examine the number of tires coming into the country from China, Cambodia, and Vietnam. These tires are usually less expensive. Houston says they are undermining the stability of the tire industry.
We're asking them what information they have if they think it warrants an investigation.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy. According to Ahmad Ali, roughly half of his customers are always looking for the best deal, sometimes prioritizing cost over quality, regardless of where the tires are made.
It has to be safe, and that's why not any manufacturer internationally or nationally can just issue their tire right away. It has to go through safety boards and has to get all the approvals and licensing before they can be issued and allowed to be sold.
Michelin employs close to 4,000 people in Nova Scotia. Premier Houston says cheaper tires made in Asia are driving prices down and putting jobs at risk.
With the trade tensions we're seeing in the world, with the Trump taxes and just the various discussions around interprovincial trade, we're all just really heightened as to making sure that the playing field is as fair as possible.
Michelin declined an interview with CTV News. Houston hopes CBSA responds quickly before any serious damage is done to Nova Scotia's tire industry. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Still ahead, what inspired one man to create this display of national pride? A man's mission to showcase his Canadian roots through creativity is now blooming with positivity. Here's CTV's Adam Sawatsky on the growing patriotism.
About 18 years ago, Sahoshi Irvin says his ordinary day suddenly turned extraordinary.
I had a vision to create the most beautiful place on earth.
The most beautiful place on earth?
Yes.
How are you qualified to do that?
Anyone's qualified to do it.
Now, before Sahoshi explains why, you should know that although he had been qualified to be a carpenter for decades, it wasn't a beautiful building he felt compelled to create.
Then you can make the most beautiful place right here.
On this lifeless section of sidewalk in front of his home, with flowers.
I knew nothing about gardening, nothing. I just knew photosynthesis occurred, that's it.
So Sahoshi enlisted the help of friends and neighbors and transformed the boulevard into a bounty of blossoms, which, he says, helped the neighborhood blossom into a more joyful place.
That's my raison d'etre, let's say, is to just give joy in whatever way I can.
While he spends thousands of hours a year caring for his garden, you should know that Sahoshi is also a former triathlete who says he's run across Canada and cycled across 48 states.
I don't get political about it, but we want to stay as Canada. It's not a 51st state.
So, while he waits for thousands of bulbs to bloom here, Sahoshi's expanded his garden to the other side of the sidewalk and arranged hundreds of flowers to form our flag, to cultivate gratitude for here and counter any conflict with elsewhere.
You don't want to have war. You don't want to fight when you're filled with joy. You want to feel good and do good things.
And why aspiring to make this the most beautiful place is not a competition for Sahoshi. It's more of an invitation to not just make one place great again, but inspire all of us to make every place feel for everyone like the most beautiful place on earth perennially.
Anyone's qualified to do it. We're all qualified to do it. Yeah. You just have to go out and do it.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Victoria.
That's a beautiful message. That's a snapshot of this Thursday. Heather will be here tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching and good night.
Canada's #1 newscast for excellence in journalism.
We begin tonight with breaking news.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina, winner of the Canadian Screen Award for Best National Newscast. Watch weeknights at 11.